So the Snyder Cut came out 1 year ago, and because of this, I decided to make a video on it. Now, this may be a hot take, but I believe that the Snyder Cut was the most important film of 2021. Yes, more important than Dune, more important than No Way Home, and more important than Space Jam: A New Legacy. You may be asking, why the Snyder Cut? Why is that the most important film of 2021? Well, it's because of the story behind it. The year is 2013, and a little indie film that you probably haven't heard about called Man of Steel came out. Man of Steel was directed by Zack Snyder, known for films like 300, Watchmen, and That One Owl movie. Man of Steel is also Warner Brothers' second attempt at making a cinematic universe with DC characters.
And please don't make the super suit green or animated.
Financially, it does well. Critically, it's divided. Personally, I think it's fine. In 2014, a new film in the newly established DC Extended Universe gets announced. A Batman vs. Superman film. I feel like we've skipped a few steps here. The movie ends up being Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, BVS for short. Yet again being directed by Zack Snyder. Not only does this film introduce Batman, but Wonder Woman, The Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg. This film also sets up the Justice League and the Wonder Woman film. It's a follow-up on Man of Steel, as well as being a film where Batman and Superman fight. Yeah, this movie was quite a bit. You know, financially it did well, but critically... But in November of 2017, we got the third DCEU film directed by Zack Snyder. Justice League. What's that? Okay, here's a picture from Man of Steel, and here's a picture from Justice League. What happened? During the production of Justice League, the daughter of Zack Snyder, Autumn Snyder, tragically took her own life, and Zack Snyder stepped down as director. And Warner Brothers, being the amazing company that they are, decided to exploit this family tragedy to make their movie more like the MCU by hiring Joss Whedon, director of Serenity, and more importantly, Avengers and Avengers: Age of Ultron. When the film released, people immediately knew something was up, and a Twitter account by the name of Movies That Matter posted a tweet saying one thing: #release the Snyder Cut. By March 25th, 2021, the Release the Snyder Cut movement would gain over 1 million tweets. Eventually, people involved in the film became part of the movement, like Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Ray Fisher, Jason Momoa, and although he wasn't directly involved in the film, the director of Suicide Squad, David Ayer. Even people who are involved in the MCU advocated for the Snyder Cut, like Dave Bautista, Simu Liu, and Scott Derrickson, the director of Doctor Strange. Heck, even Ed Boon, the creator of Mortal Kombat, advocated for the film. And for nearly 3 years, fans begged, demanded, and practically bullied Warner Brothers to get this film made. And on one fateful day, when Snyder was doing a watch party for Man of Steel, he announced in May of 2020 that the Snyder Cut was happening, and fans rejoiced. And on March 18th, 2021, a little over 4 years since the theatrical version of the film was released, we got the Snyder Cut, known by its surname as Zack Snyder's Justice League. But this film has been out for a year now. The hype has gone down a bit. We can look at this film for what it truly is and not for the hype that was built around it. Does the Snyder Cut stand the test of time? Let's find out in Zack Snyder's Justice League in retrospect. So when it comes to the way that the film was made, I would say that there are 4 major changes. These 4 changes being the runtime, the aspect ratio, the rating, and there's a black and white version. I tried to go with an R thing, but it didn't really work. So Zack Snyder's Justice League is 4 hours and 2 minutes long, and that is way longer than Alvin and the Chipmunks. For comparison, the theatrical version of the film is 2 hours long, making the Snyder Cut twice as long as the original. And not gonna lie, that runtime is pretty intimidating for people watching this for the first time. Heck, it's even intimidating for rewatches. But I think that the film is paced well enough to where you don't really feel the runtime. In fact, the runtime gives more development to characters like Cyborg, The Flash, and Steppenwolf. Because of the runtime, the film feels like an entire trilogy put into one film, and it makes it feel like an event. Although I wonder what a theatrical version of this movie would look like. And I don't mean the 2017 version, I mean I wonder what this film would look like if Zack Snyder had never left as director. The film obviously wouldn't be 4 hours long, but it could work as a 3-hour version maybe, but I know that a 2 or 2.5 version probably wouldn't work. I think that the runtime might be one of the reasons why the film turned out to be as good as it was. It fleshed out the story and characters, which is something that even Snyder's better films don't do. One thing that helps the runtime not feel as long is its story structure. The film is split into 6 parts, 8 if you count the prologue and epilogue, and those parts kind of serve as bookmarks in a way, because I think that Snyder knew that people would feel intimidated by the runtime, so he added parts. In my opinion, the definitive way to watch this is to take a break after each part, because if you watch the entire thing in one sitting, you're going to miss out on a lot of detail because you've consumed so much movie. I think by taking a break in between parts, you'll just understand the movie better, and it'll make it more digestible. Most films nowadays are shot in a 16:9 aspect ratio, whereas the Snyder Cut was shot in 4:3. The reasoning was probably that Snyder thought it looked cool, but he had this to say about it. Superheroes tend to be as figures. They tend to be less horizontal. Maybe Superman when he's flying, but when he's standing, he's more of a vertical. Snyder's decisions on things baffles me sometimes, but this actually makes a lot of sense to me. Why make a comic book film look like a film when you can make a film look like a comic book? Also, the film looks unique compared to other comic book films today. The voice of filmmakers are barely heard in the MCU, so although the decision to change the aspect ratio may be strange to some, it was the decision of a filmmaker, and that's pretty cool. One problem I do have is that they wanted to screen this for IMAX, and that's the primary reason why they chose that aspect ratio. But obviously things changed and the film ended up on HBO Max years later. I feel like that Snyder should have been more considerate for people watching on their TVs and phones, because I don't know of anyone who watched this on an IMAX theater. Justice League was rated PG-13 for science fiction, action, and violence, whereas Zack Snyder's Justice League was rated R for violence in some language. Out of all the changes that I had mentioned earlier, this one easily holds the least value in my mind. Other than some extra blood and a few naughty words, the R rating doesn't really mean much. I mean, it makes sense the Ultimate Edition of BVS is rated R, but it doesn't add anything here. And this may be controversial among Snyder stands, but Batman swearing is severely out of character, and it's not cool and edgy like you may think it is. So there's another version of this film out there called Zack Snyder's Justice League Justice is Gray Edition, where they just slap a black and white filter over the film. Do some shots look cool? Yes. Is this film never meant to be in black and white, making some shots overcomplicated? Also, yes. Black and white in modern cinema can be a great thing if it has purpose. Alfred Hitchcock could have easily made Psycho in color, but it's in black and white because it makes the setting more creepy and dingy. David Lynch could have made The Elephant Man in color, but it's in black and white to immerse you in the time period of the film. The Lighthouse could have been in color, but The Lighthouse combines the reasons of both Psycho and The Elephant Man. There is no reason for this film to be black and white. If you compare the story of the theatrical and Snyder versions, they are very similar. Steppenwolf wants the mother boxes to destroy the Earth, and the Justice League has to stop them. But it's in the little details that makes each film different from one another. For one, Steppenwolf's reasoning for invading Earth is actually fleshed out. We hear that Steppenwolf is exiled, but we're never told that that's the reason why he's invading Earth. In the theatrical film, he just does it because the mother wants him to. In the Snyder Cut, Steppenwolf is doing this because he wants to get back on Darkseid's good side. Although I don't think that the Snyder version of Steppenwolf is amazing, he's way better here and his motivations are believable. But beyond that, there are little changes like Superman's suit being black, Cyborg's father dying, the Atom being introduced. Oh yeah, Darkseid is in this movie. I think Darkseid was cut out of the original film because Warner Brothers wanted to be more like the MCU, because the MCU kind of slowly built up Thanos to Infinity War. But Darkseid being in the Snyder Cut isn't rushed or an attempt to catching up to Marvel, but more of a taste of what's to come. Most of the characters are severely better as well. The Flash isn't a bumbling idiot who makes jokes, Aquaman isn't a bumbling idiot who makes jokes, Wonder Woman doesn't have a forced arc about being a leader, Cyborg is an actual character, Batman isn't a joke machine, and Superman does not have a 2D upper lip. Cyborg is probably the most changed character in the entire film. In the theatrical cut, he's just kind of there, but here he has a backstory and everything, and his flashback scenes are visually the most pleasing in the entire film. I really enjoyed his arc with his father and the tragedy of his character. The entire third act of this film is completely different from the original. For one, the heroes lose in a way. The Flash is shot, delaying the charge that Cyborg needed to stop the Unity, and the Flash is forced to go back in time to reverse those events, and that scene was probably my favorite scene in the entire movie. The only thing I'd change is the Flash's internal monologue. I don't really like it when characters talk to themselves. It feels unnatural to me. Also, Steppenwolf gets beheaded, which was pretty cool. In fact, the whole final battle is really cool. We see the Justice League actually work as a team and doing combo stuff, and it makes their hero shot feel well earned. One scene that wasn't even supposed to be in the movie was the nightmare scene, or at least this version of the nightmare scene. Jared Leto returns as the Joker, and it's pretty great. I actually really like Jared Leto as a Joker, and I think that his Joker could have been great if we got scenes like this nightmare scene, because the simple conversation between Batman and the Joker is one of the best Batman-Joker conversations in cinema. The Joker actually challenges Batman's no-killing rule, which is what their entire dynamic is supposed to be. I really like that, and it makes me hope that Warner Brothers will give Jared Leto maybe a second chance. Martian Manhunter showed up and did nothing, which is pretty funny to me. He just morphed into Martha Kent to trick Lois Lane into moving on, and that scene adds nothing to the story, and then he shows up in the epilogue to tell Batman that he wants to join the Justice League. Ben Affleck looks like he just smoked a fat joint. The music is also really different, and this was probably my least favorite change. Not that the music is bad, but the whole Wonder Woman singing thing was pretty overused and it lost its impact after a while. Zack Snyder's Justice League is not only an improvement on the theatrical version of the film, but it's also an improvement on his previous two DCEU films. I think that I've made it pretty clear that I'm not a huge fan of Snyder's vision for these characters. I think that Man of Steel is entertaining, has a decent story, but it doesn't really capture the essence of who Superman is. And BVS is an overcomplicated mess that's dark and edgy for the sake of it. Snyder's fans can tell me all they like about how these films are masterpieces, but you cannot convince me that the Martha scene is secretly genius.
You're letting him kill Martha.
When Batman goes to the warehouse to kill a bunch of bad guys, it doesn't make sense. The Snyder Cut didn't make me love or change my perception of his vision, but it did help me understand, and although I don't like it, that made me appreciate his vision. Zack Snyder's Batman isn't how I perceive Batman. Zack Snyder's Flash isn't how I perceive the Flash. Zack Snyder's Wonder Woman isn't how I perceive Wonder Woman. But I get what Snyder is trying to do, and I appreciate the fact that he got to tell his version of the story. When I rewatch Man of Steel and BVS, I still won't really like them, but I'll get what Snyder was trying to do. But obviously this film was a massive improvement from the theatrical version. For one, the jokes, for the most part, are actually funny, and I found myself chuckling at a lot of the Flash's jokes. Batman's arc is actually addressed here, and he doesn't kill anyone. I get that it was his arc in BVS not to kill people, but it wasn't clearly stated at all. Batman killing wasn't condemned, it was supposed to look cool, and it wasn't. But here, Bruce feels guilt for attempting to kill Superman and brings him back to life to redeem himself. One thing that BVS and Justice League have in common is that they lack heart, but for totally different reasons. With BVS, it was intentional, but with Justice League, it has no heart because it was forced to be something that it's not. Honestly, the best way I can describe the theatrical version of this film is the Snyder Cut taken out of context. There are recognizable moments, but it's either tweaked or the context has changed a bit. Take the scene where the mother boxes are explained. In the theatrical cut, it's Steppenwolf invading, but in the Snyder Cut, it's Darkseid. The scene is almost the same, but for some reason, Darkseid was taken out. The color grading is also completely different. I'm not a huge fan of how Snyder color grades his films, but this is a massive improvement to whatever this was. The theatrical version looks like someone ate a meal made by the MCU, but this film isn't the meal. This film is the massive dookie that was taken after eating the meal. From a visual, story, and directorial perspective, the Snyder Cut is better in every way. This film made me get behind Snyder's versions of The Flash, Cyborg, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and even Batman to a certain extent, but I still cannot get behind his version of Superman.
It's not that Henry Cavill's acting is bad or anything, it's just how Snyder wants us to see Superman versus how he actually is. In Man of Steel, Superman kills General Zod, but we're meant to think that he had no other choice but to do so. But I think that Cosmonaut Variety Hour has the best argument on why this makes no sense.
If you're strong enough to snap his neck and leave a shockwave afterwards, then why don't you just aim his face somewhere else? You didn't even try!
In BVS, Superman is pretty upset with the fact that Batman kills people, when Superman literally kills someone to save Lois Lane and fails to save everyone else who died before. Later in the film, Superman lets thousands of people die because he's angry that they're mad at him for indirectly killing millions during the events of Man of Steel and destroying countless homes and businesses. Yet in the Snyder Cut, he's treated like he's a saint or something. Batman's like, dang, he really do be human though, and tries to resurrect him even though he's been getting these visions that are described as premonitions, where Superman joins Darkseid and kills a lot of people. Like, at some point, Batman has to realize that his dreams are starting to become reality, when parademons, Darkseid, and Superman in a black suit are a part of his reality. But that's besides the point. Bringing Superman back is a dividing point in the Justice League, and when they do it, they're just all of a sudden cool with it. Like, aight man, you try to kill us, but you know, whatever. It's especially weird when Cyborg has these same premonitions as Batman and fails to tell anyone about it, but Cyborg is willing to let it slide to do a superhero pose. And everyone seems to be cool with Superman all of a sudden, as if he wasn't a controversial figure a few years ago. And you'd think that resurrecting someone would show even more red flags.
Not only do fans want a sequel to Zack Snyder's Justice League, but they want a full-on restoration of Zack Snyder's vision for the DCEU.
Fans want David Ayer's cut for Suicide Squad, Man of Steel 2, a Batman film starring Ben Affleck, and a new Gods film. The question is, will Warner Brothers cave in? I want to say no, but I mean, we have the Snyder Cut, so why wouldn't we see films that is only canon to the Snyder films? But this isn't just one film, this is an entire cinematic universe of films. And Justice League was already shot for the most part, and minus David Ayer's Suicide Squad, every film hasn't been shot yet. But DC is so convoluted right now that I don't even think it matters how many cinematic universes they have. I mean, there's the DC Extended Universe, the DC Animated Universe, the new Batverse, the Arrowverse, the Titan Universe, and the Lego Cinematic Universe.
I've seen you go through similar phases in 2016 and 2012 and 2008 and 2005 and 1997 and 1995 and 1992 and 1989 and that weird one in 1966.
So who really cares if we add one more? It seems very unlikely to get the Snyderverse, but I said the same thing about the Snyder Cut, and here we are. According to Snyder, Warner Brothers hasn't shown any interest in the Snyderverse, and it seems like that Snyder has no interest either, considering he's doing movies with Netflix with the Army of the Dead sequel and whatever this Rebel Moon thing is going to be. But Snyder seems past DC at this point. But personally, I'd like to see some things that were set up in the Snyder Cut come into fruition, like Martian Manhunter, the Legion of Doom, all the Nightmare stuff, and maybe as a mini-series, we could just see Snyder complete his story for the DCEU.
Love or hate the Snyder Cut, you cannot deny the impact that it has made on film. Fans more than ever want a filmmaker's vision of a film over a studio's manufactured piece of media.
Because of the Snyder Cut, fans realize that their voices can be heard. Fans demand David Ayer's version of Suicide Squad, Joel Schumacher's version of Batman Forever, a true sequel to the original and Amazing Spider-Man films. That is the full vision of Mark Webb and Sam Raimi. The original version of The Rise of Skywalker before J.J. Abrams was going to direct.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
David Lynch's true adaptations of Dune before the studio forced him to cut down the runtime. David Fincher has proven to be one of the best filmmakers of our time, yet his first film, Alien 3, was riddled with studio interference, so why not let him show his version of the film? I honestly believe that because of the Snyder Cut, we got the Batman and the Suicide Squad. Warner Brothers put faith into their filmmakers, and it ended up paying off. And I think that in the future, we'll get more comic book films where the director gets full creative freedom. Maybe because of the Snyder Cut, we'll get more films that have little to no studio interference. Maybe we'll get less films like Suicide Squad, Justice League, Hancock, Blade Runner, Fantastic Four, X-Men Origins Wolverine, and Spider-Man 3, and we'll get to see the original versions of those films or just better films moving on. Will this happen? Probably not. Studio interference has been a part of cinema for decades now, but here is to wishful thinking.
The Snyder Cut is very far from a perfect film, but I have a lot of appreciation for it because of what it stands for in the film industry. I mean, filmmakers get their creative rights taken away all the time, and this film made people aware of the fact that that happens, and I'm very grateful for that. People are now aware for when a film isn't a director's full vision. Thank you for watching Zack Snyder's Justice League in retrospect. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on notifications because I plan on making more videos like this in the future. So if you want to see more, you can stay tuned to see more. Yet again, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you later.